All right, everybody, welcome to Nerds Talk About the Boys, the show where we're going to do exactly what the fuck you think we're going to do. I'm SC.
I'm DP.
We're going to talk about the boys. Season 2, Episode 4, Nothing Like It in the World. Before we get into the brass tacks and the pluses and minuses and the psychopathy, let's go ahead and welcome the people the way we always do here by telling them where to reach us.
All right, hey, so if you are online, you can actually go online right now at nerdcyclopedia.com and catch us with all our links. We're at Nerdcyclopedia all over social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and also on YouTube. Of course, you're watching that right now if you're, tuned in live with us.
Handsome gentlemen. You sure
are. And that we are. All right. Make sure that you're hitting that notification button so whenever we do come on live or whenever we post a video, you are getting that, subscription thing. Make sure that also we have our audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Google Play, which will now be changed to Google Podcast, Spotify. Also, we're on iHeartRadio. We're basically everywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. Tune in everywhere. So make sure that you're listening to that. Also, if you want to give us feedback on anything that we're talking about today, tomorrow, next day, or even in the past, make sure that you're going to us at emailing us at nerdcyclopedia.com.
Absolutely, everybody. So come check us out. We're excited to hear from you. We're excited to have you on board as a nerd psycho, as we like to call ourselves and our fans. DP, this episode of this show was sort of almost like plot-centric, and it sort of paid off a lot of the character development we've seen in the first couple episodes of the show.
Yeah.
I am convinced that at this point that the irony of The Boys is that the protagonist of this series sure does seem to be a girl, and it sure seems to be Starlight Annie, in my opinion. What do you think about that, just to kick it off here for us?
Well, okay, it's basically, this episode here sort of slowed it down for us. Whereas like the first 3 episodes, it was like a sprint out the gate, got you into like the season and got you going and everything, like, A Train running on the track. The first 3 episodes did that. This episode sort of takes it back a little, slows it down. I noticed the runtime of it was like 69, minutes and everything. I was like, this episode is a little long. But hey, I'm all about, having a, long episode of The Boys. So it's all good for that.
When it runs over, there's a good reason usually, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So with Annie, I love Annie. She is like such a sweetheart. Huey, sometimes his weenie tightish I can give or take and stuff, but for the most part, their relationship is what grounds this series and everything. And really that's what the basis of a lot of this episode was, just to show you that everybody actually needs something going, from our main characters to like our side characters. There's sort of have like a need for something, within this. Huey is needing Annie. Annie is needing Huey. Butcher is needing his significant other and everything. Homelander is needing whatever he needs. Everybody, Mother's Milk, we get a little backstory about as far as him. Everybody is needing something this episode. Even Black Noir, he needs to know where Butcher is.
He needs to know right now, and you better not keep him waiting long enough to eat an Almond Joy, which is one of the worst candy bars ever conceived of, right?
He had the garbage can right there.
Said, nope. And then he did. I loved all the Red Bull cans. That was such a great bit. The Black Noir like casually intimidating everybody that just works in this building. Like, unfortunately, when you work for a big company that's evil, things that you have to deal with evil sometimes. Evil people come in and tell you to do things. I want to talk about this milk stuff. This milk stuff going on with Homelander. We see this milk coming back, and I mean, in this case, just a really messed up situation with a shapeshifter that he has like forced to change into his mommy obsession, right?
He has like a real sick fetish. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
It's weird because like this is a guy that needs nothing, right? Needs nothing. Mm-hmm. Who knows? I mean, he seems pretty indestructible. I mean, I guess, in the Dragon Ball Z sense, there's always a bigger fish, right? Like, I guess that's the case. But, how do you animate, how do you put urgency onto a character who is effectively impervious to all weaknesses. You know, it's this problem that I think sometimes you would run into in the Harry Potter books where, like, you know, if you trap a wizard in this universe in a room, they just get out, or they just can create whatever they need to survive. You know what I'm saying? What they've done is they've made it so that the stakes for Homelander are essentially just murdering every single human. And is he gonna not, like, snap, right? Is like the for him, it's like this balance of, is the adoration and the volume of adoration sufficient to prevent him from wanting to massacre us? And in that way, and this is a weird, you know, I'm open about my history nerdery on this show, but in a weird way, this is how the ancients, and specifically the Greeks and the Romans, would have viewed their deities. Because the reason that you pray to the patron deity of your city isn't because you fervently believe that. It's because you have a deal. You have a deal with that deity, and if you don't make with the nice, they're not going to make with the protection from, you know, perils. You name it. You name it. There was a god for it, right? That's kind of how the pantheon worked. Interesting stuff to see Homelander, you know, coming up against these sorts of challenges, and seeing him navigating them, and essentially, you know, doing so like almost like an amoral artificial intelligence. You know what I mean? Just kind of cutting right to the chase every single time. You know what I mean?
So you have Homelander, who is the all-powerful Superman of this earth and everything. And granted, we don't know the full extent of his powers. We just assuming he is Superman. So, you know, he has the I'm assuming he has X-ray vision. We didn't even see, you know.
He says he can see anything through anything but zinc. When they had Translucent's body, and they were like, "Where are we gonna hide it?" He can just look and see it.
Well, I guess let's just assume he's Superman in this universe.
I feel like that's a fair comp, right?
That's yeah. So for a guy who has this much power and can pretty much obliterate everyone, you know, and maintain that sense of self-control, for him to go about, you know, trying to with his insecurities, he's going about things in sort of a human type of way, instead of actually just dominating and taking control, you know, with his powers and with his it's sort of childlike in his, you know, in his attributes and stuff. He's half like, you know, half man-child in that, you know, half like super powerful, you know, alien being and everything. But because he's been brought up in like a human type of atmosphere, you know, he's sort of, you know, put a cap on his own power, you know, his own super, you know, herohood and everything. So that's one of the things I'm thinking that is, you know, with Homelander that I find really interesting about him.
He's raised by wolves, and so he's a wolf, and it shouldn't surprise us that he is, right? That's what happens when you raise wolves. You know what I mean? When you let wolves be in charge of rearing children, they end up like wolves, and that, of course, is another.
He was raised by a wolf, you know, by wolves and everything, but is his heart essentially a wolf? You know, or is he just like a baby, you know, I don't know what you call a baby wolf or whatever, but a pup and everything. Is he willing to step over that line for total domination and everything? He keeps holding himself back to like a Stan Edgar, to like a Stormfront. You know, a lot of these situations that he confronts, he lets these things that are really essentially beneath him, or not as powerful as him, stop him from, you know, doing some of the things that he actually wants to do. We see a situation with him and Annie in an elevator, you know, during this episode.
The human lie detector test.
Yeah. So he knows, in his heart of hearts, he knows Annie is still seeing, you know, Hugh, you know, but Annie just talks him out of it. Pretty much just talks him out of it. She knows in her heart how she feels about Huey, but in a moment she was able to lie to go past his, you know, own human lie detector. But essentially, Homelander could have just, you know, killed her right there, right?
Yeah.
You know, he already warned her, you know, beforehand. But yet again, we see him stop.
It seems like there's this, like, what are the stakes for this guy? This is the confusing thing about Homelander, because, you know, the first 3 episodes that we talked about last week sort of made it seem like maybe this son of his was going to be the thing that could, you know, moor him to reality. Like, you could sort of pin him to, like, somebody's affection. But this episode, and like at the end here, we see him murdering Doppelganger, who is like in Homelander's visage, right? So he's basically a Homelander doppelganger, and comes on to Homelander sexually, and Homelander just snaps his neck, and he says, "I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody," and that is worrisome if you're thinking that you're going to control this deity by controlling his son. That is not good news for Vought if that's the game they think they're going to play with Homelander. It's not going to go great. And, again, to use his language, Zeus, who was the king of the gods, as we've discussed, not a great father, not a great dad. Deadbeat, will turn you into a tree as soon as you start asking him for money. You're a tree now. Enjoy going to the mall. Sycamore.
Right. Yeah, so and we sort of see Homelander in that that final scene and everything, and he's I would assume he's sort of thinking about his conversation with Stormfront, because Stormfront just puts him on blast and everything. One scary thing that I've seen in this episode was the conversation him and Stormfront and Homelander had, was that that she made the comment about you don't need you're popular, so you don't need to have 50 million people. We already have 50 million fans, but I have 5 million soldiers, which means that in her eyes, all you need is passionate soldier type individuals who will follow you to the ends of the earth. Fans will come and go. Fans are fickle and everything. You have, so many of those. She was trying to demonstrate to Homelander, you get these base of fans, so you get this base of supporters, that are with you, and you can, translate them to fervent supporters, to where they can actually, convert more folks, and then you get more folks until you actually reach a point where those people that you thought were fans, they'll actually become 50 million supporters, or fervent soldiers in her eyes and everything. And that's what she is trying to establish, or that's what she said she established already for herself. Stormfront is at the point where he wants to be, or think he needs to be, but I don't know if he maybe toward the end of the episode is his journey towards where Stormfront is.
I think that when we talk about the difference between fans and soldiers, one thing that I think Stormfront's doing is she's showing a Vought who's in charge, right? She's showing the company who's in charge. And what Homelander goes is he goes into Edgar's office and he says, well, I'll just quit, and then, you'll have no fans, and no one will love you, and no one will buy your stuff. And what she says is, if you turn these people angry against Vought, they're going to be a lot more afraid of you. It's not just the way, you can intimidate the company the same way you intimidate people now. Like, you can do exactly the same thing. And she's saying that's exactly what I'm doing, is I'm taking the people's anger and I'm turning it into a weapon to make Vought do whatever I want.
Now, isn't that scary? I thought that was such it's really profound how, this show talks about just some really, highly relatable stuff. I thought that was one of the scariest moments, just seeing the trueness of the way Stormfront is, how what's the word for it? How just how, not conniving, but just how diabolical she can be. Yeah. She's worse than Homelander, in my eyes, and we haven't even seen the full extent of what she has planned.
Homelander seems to have a general me, like the selfish me first, and superhumans because I'm a superhuman first sort of thing going on. Stormfront, and then we can just go ahead and talk about what's going on with this character in this episode. So the other half of the episode is spent on this dog leg down to North Carolina to ask somebody about Liberty, who is a second-tier superhero from the 70s, and we have this harrowing tale of a sort of a super-powered racist vigilante police murder of her brother in 1972 by this character who just says awful things and then just beats him to death, beats his face in with her fist. Right. And of course it's The Boys, so we get the graphic aftermath because it's The Boys. It has to be somewhat tabloided. But we find out that the reason the reason that this victim is so terrified is because Stormfront is this insanely racist lady from 1972. It's the same person, and that is just, obviously we were shown last week the consideration that Stormfront is prepared to give the human race.
Right.
But she apparently feels like there are levels to humanity. And she has applied what in the weirdest way, and I don't know why this is. It's always the people that certain fascist people think are undesirable are always the ones that seem to get messed with. It's just awful.
Yeah,
it's the worst.
Yeah, it's crazy because number one, we don't know. We're finding bits and pieces about her background. The Lady Liberty thing was an interesting thing because number one, she seems like she's the same age as she was back in the 70s and everything. So, there's something to that where, okay, you got the compound V, making, babies and everything into the like soups and stuff. And then you got maybe this compound V, something to maybe affect her to not even age, to that effect and stuff. So this is sort of going into the point of, these soups pass and everything. But we haven't found out her motivations as to why she is this way. So I'm curious to see where they go with this. We're seeing she's a blanket racist and stuff, which is a scary thing to be a suit.
To have that sort of power and to be
and that oh man, and also she changed her identity from Liberty to Stormfront.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk about that symbolism first of all. I mean the Stormfront is sort of like it's wrapped up in this fascist Nazi symbolism in politics, and these words are sort of were used by the Third Reich, in their iconography. So it's just obviously a very obvious, an obvious illusion. And there's no way that it could be an accident. And so I feel like ignoring it would be doing a disservice to the text. So you have to talk about it. So going from Liberty and being. And remember, we're introduced to Liberty in a beer commercial and her committing a murder of some innocent kid that's just driving his sister around. You know what I mean? To piano practice, so she fell asleep with their ice cream or whatever. And we find out that this was the conception of liberty, right? Think about that symbolism. This was liberty. This was America. This was the beer commercial stuff in the 70s, right? To see that, how that has evolved, and to see how the outward iconography has matched the inward motivations, right? There is no longer some sort of veneer here that is necessary. And in that way, maybe Homelander is a necessary step to get to there. Right. Because until you can believe that somebody should be as powerful as Homelander or is as powerful as Homelander, you can't believe that they should exist, let alone that they should exist and should be in control.
Well, we also see another thing that Homeland is doing. He's sort of doing like a purge, in a way. So he is getting rid of the weak links. He doesn't want, we seen last week, he doesn't want any weak links coming into, or what he feels, coming into the 7 and everything by, him eliminating, the Daredevil, the guy and everything, and he complains to Doppelganger, Stillwell, the faux Stillwell, that all these weak links and weak chains, weak links that are in the 7 are taking him down, or not, are not where he's at and everything. So he's sort of purging by getting rid of A-Train, saying A-Train is out, which is, a surprise to him and everything. And because of his heart situation and everything, he feels that, he's a weak link. And whoever else, he starts to decide that, okay, this is just not going to do until he gets to a point where he has all powerful beings that are on his level, for whatever he decides he wants to do with the 7, to go to that next level, to gain that superiority, because we already know that Homelander feels superior to everyone. He should have been named like, Superior or something like that. But Homelander is that. But yeah, he goes on at it. How about their trip to, the MM's trip?
Oh, the road trip down in North Carolina.
Yeah, the road trip. So a couple things that I had to rewind and everything. So they had the billboard up saying,
Don't abort
something
that
to the
baby. It
effect
could be a soup.
it could be a soup.
Soup. Still up there in the South. They didn't get the memo yet. I guess they
Oh
don't change
yeah,
billboards
yeah,
too
yeah,
often. It's
yeah,
not first of the
yeah,
month
yeah,
as
yeah,
a
yeah,
cross
yeah,
day.
yeah. The South is the South and everything. And on the back of that farm, man, we see
That was some
Homelander with the
sort of thing.
Confederate flag.
That was
Oh
some
man, oh
sort
man.
of thing. I gotta tell you, that was some very interesting. That's an
Yeah,
interesting iconography because it says so
yeah.
much about who Homelander is,
Uh
and
huh.
I think that when you really think about the values that Homelander has, which apparently are, and I'll list them here: strength and purity, and
Uh huh. Strength and
for some
purity, and
reason,
like we was talking about, he's
yeah,
purging as well.
purging. I mean, he is every inch a Confederate. I mean, every inch a Confederate, right? He wants his own
Hmm.
personal power over everybody else. He wants to be in charge. I mean, he's selfishly holding on to his own power at the expense of the freedom of others. He exercises, you know, the powers of life and death against people callously. He holds, if not in literal bondage, he holds his underlings to him in a real sort of emotional and terror bondage, all of them. So that image of him on the barn with the Confederate flag instead of the American flagish cape that he has now
Right.
didn't look, I mean, honestly, didn't look insanely out of place. It almost seemed more correct to
No,
me
not
than
at
the
all.
real
Hmm.
costume.
Right, right, right. More apt than like the real costume, but it was a hell of a display, and also it really goes to show you how deep the Confederacy obviously is in the South and everything, and how they substituted that for Homelander's flag and everything. Um, that is just crazy how much they in the universe in this show how much they relate to Homelander like that and just look at him as like their hero in a way.
It's really disturbing. It's really disturbing to have, to find out, one, that this person using the iconography of American independence, essentially, as a
Hmm.
veneer to cover their criminal enterprise, is unctuous enough to discover, to realize, sort of as you're watching it, that maybe she would be playing for that team, right? I
Right.
mean, if you really think about it, because I'm this is something that if anyone wants to sound out in the comments, feel free. But there's a sort of
Hmm.
a through line of um, a fascistic sort of authoritarian iconography that runs from the
Hmm.
Confederacy to the Third Reich to
Hmm.
these Nazi scientists that are fictional, right? So you can kind of
Right.
see how, the Third Reich was using Jim Crow laws as the basis for some of the anti-Jewish pogromic measures that they were putting into place. So
Right.
the idea that a particular, that a particular sort of sector of the country that has this is steeped in this white nationalism would
Hmm.
grasp onto the iconography of Homelander, because it sure seems
Yeah.
like that iconography is being presented to us by the
Yeah.
artist making this piece as intentionally
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
as intentionally fascistic and intentionally right wing.
Yeah.
It just seems that that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Homelander is probably dog whistling in this universe like like a champ, and everyone that's supposed to hear the
Yeah.
whistle is hearing and listening to
Hmm.
him. Hence you wouldn't have that symbolism and iconography as you say like that. So it's very, very, very interesting. How the people take to him, and on the other end of Stormfront, of going at the corporation, she's part of the seven, knowing that she's part of Vought, but she's still willing to challenge them, still willing to get people to, question, Vought and everything, and still being a part of the system and
Hmm.
everything. I find that also real interesting as well.
I have a feeling that part of her deal is going to be, if I present myself to the public as the antithesis of Vought, and Vought is who was poisoning these babies, then when I'm in
Hmm.
charge, you can trust me because you know that
Yes.
I was so
Yes.
anti-Vought. And if she
Oh,
is really
yes.
some sort of, and I'll
Yes.
just list them in order of probability, right? Anti-aging
Mhm.
serum, frozen,
Uh-huh.
clone baby. So we'll say one of those three things, right? Either any way you cut it, we're talking about probably a first gen, like born in 1950,
Mhm.
augmented human being who is going to have had direct contact with the
Mhm.
Nazi progenitors of the current iteration of Vought. I
Right.
mean, that's wild. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Homelander does not seem like he's not, he's susceptible to this. And this is what should be terrifying to Annie, is maybe
Well,
that
yeah,
this
yeah,
coup is
yeah, yeah.
happening and she's worried about exposing Vought's fraud, the fraud that
Well,
Vought committed against essentially the superheroes themselves. But
well,
she's missing this
it's
bigger thing.
well, Annie makes a very good point when she goes on to her, when she meets Huey, in the
Mm-hmm.
park and everything. She said, "Okay, we revealed, the compound V, so to the public and everything. How come they're not making a bigger outcry? The Vault is still, doing what they're doing and everything. It doesn't seem like that much is going down." Huey tries to assure her that these things take time and stuff. But what are we seeing nowadays with society and everything? We see misinformation. We see all this type of stuff. Whistleblowers going at each other. Things going on as far as corrupt officials. Government and everything. And the public has really become desensitized to these things because everything is just going over and over and over again. They just want to go about their lives and just be as it is. In this universe, we're sort of seeing it the same way. Vault, it gets exposed, but yet Vault is still held as like, okay, yeah, they're still a big corporation. Hey, it is
Just
what it
weather it.
is.
They basically said, look, we'll weather it. When the stock price goes down too low, we'll spend some of our cash reserves. We'll buy them back. We'll get a nice little dip. And hey, look, if we all sell our stuff now, buy it back, we can recoup a little bit of value. We're going to buy in lower. We're going to decrease our cost base. I mean, this is what they should do, first of all. I mean, not that I'm trying to give this evil corporation any business advice, because they definitely don't need that. They've got that stuff on lockdown.
Right.
I think that Vought itself is like this malevolence, right? Like what is
Uh-huh.
like their very building sticks into Manhattan like a needle in an eye. It's just plopped in there, right? Like the Avengers
Right.
Tower always felt like it was coming like up. You know what I mean? Like up out of the city.
Right.
This building with the
Right.
7 looks like a sword plunged into the heart of Manhattan.
Yeah, good pickup.
This is
Good
just
pickup.
dominance, Vought is not
Yeah.
here to help people. Vought is here to shove the government aside and to privatize the services of the government, namely security,
Yes. Yes.
whatever else they can get their hands on, law enforcement. They won't need prisons
Mhm.
for reasons that are becoming obvious from watching them work. Not going to be a problem there, apparently. Uh, I, it's terrifying to think of. It's terrifying to think of what Homelander is in relationship to things we have now. Really, does that make sense when I say that? Like,
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's real relatable. I mean, him and Stormfront
well,
to a degree, especially if Stormfront can manipulate him, because what she's essentially she's a master manipulator. Homelander thought he was a great manipulator, but he's doing things through like dominance and control and everything because he has the power to do so. Stormfront is doing it with her mind, and right now she says so far she has 5 million soldiers and stuff. How many more can she convert with the with her position of, okay, you could trust me,
yeah,
you could believe me. I'm the one that's against the court.
fake
I'm the one that's
integrity.
going against
Fake
the man and
integrity.
everything. Yeah.
This whole it comes back to the Second Corinthians, the clang gong and the empty symbol, right? And that's symbol like symbol like symbol, but makes sense here too.
Right.
Let's talk just for a second about Mother's Milk too, because I want to talk to
yes.
to speak to this, because there's a couple of different scenes where, we find out that he's sort of going through an OCD situation. He has this little dollhouse that he has as a microcosm of his life, where he tries to maintain order here because his life is chaos. And he opens up to Annie, which at first I didn't know if he wasn't trying, like just saying some stuff just to ingratiate himself, because I can never tell at first. I'm just bad about that. But when we hear the
Right.
second story about what happened to his father, you sort of know this is a man who he's telling us this story about his father, and he casts his father as a man whose will could not be broken before his body.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
And he fought this, again, giant company that we see now as being monolithic. And we find out about his stubbornness and, like, I'm going to get my 31 free scoops. I'm going to get my 31 flavors. I don't care how embarrassing it is. And I like to see Mother's Milk opening up to Annie, because we all know Annie ain't going to betray him. That's fine. That's pretty safe.
Yeah.
She's a pretty safe character to open up to.
I mean, when you talk about two characters sitting at the table talking, or just talking about, scenes where that happens, them two, who you would never expect to just sit down and actually talk, was a great thing to see, with an episode. Yeah. I heard some people complaining on Twitter, okay, well, this episode was slow, not enough action and everything. Sometimes you just want to sit down and watch two people talk and actually exchange some meaningful dialogue. That's what we got here with Annie and also Mother's Milk.
Sometimes you want to know why the butt farts and whose butt it is. I do enjoy. I enjoyed the pairing. I enjoyed that Annie has this. I like seeing that Annie has a genuine desire to help, despite the fact that it could endanger herself. And we saw that in that traffic accident. Like I said, I'm starting to feel more and more like the person I want to root for the most in this show is Starlight. I mean, honestly, like I feel like I would prefer her to win than any character.
Yes. Because she has really the most pure heart out of anybody, and they did great character development with her in the beginning. From her going against her mom and everything. And also with her her situation with the Deep in the very beginning with that sexual assault and stuff. You feel for her. I mean, you're on her side. You feel that she was a victim and she deserves to have her happiness and and show she's the one to root for.
She's so tough and so strong and so smart, and all Vought can see is her TNA, and all Vought can see is feathered hair, and all Vought can see is her ability to control electricity. They can't see these things about her that make her exceptional because they're not looking for it.
And why should they? They're a corporation that's out there to make money off these suits.
To exploit
anything that goes to exploit that, anything that goes against that to try to like the thing that you're seeing right now with like the whole Black Lives Matter movement and everything. It's not a money maker. Ratings go down when people when some of these athletes and everything go on TV and start talking about different things about Black Lives Matter and blah blah this and blah blah that. It's not a money maker. Corporations want to make money. So to have them, display stuff like that, their real feelings and morals and stuff, it's a great detractor. So this thing we're seeing with Annie and everything, and her being sexualized, and she doesn't wear her other uniform at all. She wears the most sexual, part of the uniform, the new uniform that they made for her. To keep her out there, to keep her, blasted out there and everything.
We talked last week about how one of the things that Holly really struck her was that scene where Annie is taking off her Starlight regalia. And I think it's legit that she wears this uniform because this is a mask. She's wearing a disguise to disguise her true super identity, which is that herself. And just her. That's all that is. It's really just Annie. Right. The thing she does as a super on that trip is she flickers the lights. Like she dims the lights to get the mood right. That's it. Other than that, does she need? If she didn't have any powers, would that trip have been any different? Other than less dangerous.
so let's talk a little bit about the trip, and I'm glad you brought that up. One trope that you always see on these type of shows or type of movies or whatever. If an accident happens and a superpower is near in the vicinity and everything. So Annie and them are undercover. She has an opportunity to go try to save or try to help the situation when the truck hit the car. Her first instinct as a superhero was to go to try to help them and, use her powers, in a way and everything. But Mother's Milk and Huey say, no, they're here, they're undercover, they're here, they're not to try, they don't want to intervene, for fear of bringing too much attention. Annie is like, no. So that's sort of like knocking against her own purity and her own, uprighteous way and everything, which is really a great subversion of a trope of a superhero just jumping into the situation and everything being
The Uncle
handled.
Ben.
We
The Uncle
see,
Ben trope.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we see Andy actually stepping back, listening to Mother's Milk and Huey, and going back and not helping. So how hard would it? How great of a scene was that? In my eyes, to sort of subvert the trope in that
Well,
instance.
Erin Moriarty is doing some incredible lifting this year. She's doing excellent work.
Oh yeah,
I really liked the call out because her song was on the radio on every single channel, and they
yeah,
said, "Oh, you got a really good voice," because that's actually her singing it, right? I told you that I accidentally
oh
saw
yeah,
it.
yeah. That was
Very
that was
funny call
nice.
out. I really appreciated that. Uh, there's protests in the Middle East over Compound V. So there's world unrest over Compound V. The bot isn't getting a total free pass on this. They're still alive, but their standing in
Right,
the world has been smacked significantly. And so has America's, and you can tell because that America First sort of advertising campaign that Homelander put out is just sort of
right,
falling flat. And I almost feel like what Stormfront is telling him is half measures aren't going to work anymore. Half measure,
right. Yeah,
you can't go out
yeah,
there and say,
yeah.
wink, wink.
Right,
You have
right,
to go out
right,
there and
right.
say exactly what you mean. And then people
Yep,
say,
yep.
did he really mean that? Is that what Homelander meant when he said that? Or did he mean
You
something
gotta
totally
re-
different?
you gotta really take time to dominate. So in a way, it's maybe a divide and conquer thing where okay, you got the setup, you got Homelander doing so a lot of things to sort of curry people into his favor and
Yep.
stuff, but he hasn't taken a big step to dominate like how Stormfront is trying to dominate and everything because she doesn't have that stature and power like Homelander does, but she is on the right track if she's doing what I think she's doing. So you got the divide and conquer. So at this point, you're dividing people. You're getting people with bunches of different opinions. Then at some point, if Homelander is deciding to, which maybe was happening at the end of the episode, where he's saying, "I don't need anybody. I could do this for myself." Maybe he's ready to conquer.
Well, let's
I
talk.
don't know
Let's
for
talk about
speed.
what
I
that could
don't.
look like then. Let's talk
Yeah.
about
Okay.
what this plot could look like because we've got Stormfront, we've got Homelander, and it's not like right-wing putches haven't happened before. We can't just talk about the playbook openly here. So let's talk about the playbook. So what the right wants to do, I mean, and what Stormfront and Homelander want to do is they want to create chaos and say we are the only ones that can stop this chaos. So they invite these super terrorists, they create this super terrorist threat, import them to America, and have these battles with them that result in the mass death that prompts them to be given the power to stop the problem they're creating. So if you want to look at the historical reference on this, they call it the Reichstag fire. That's what it's called. So it's distraction that allows the clamp down against the group that you want to ostracize. And in Nazi Germany, that was Jewish people, as everybody is aware. So, and others as well. We shouldn't forget them as well. So that's essentially the play. So what do we do first? First, we start having these super terrorists come. What do? We stoke the flames on that. We get everybody worried about the super terrorist threat. And then the threats escalate. So the damage gets worse and worse. And so the power level of the people you have to send gets bigger and bigger. Kamiko's brother, Mouse, was ridiculously OP. He never should have lost. I mean, he shouldn't have lost that fight. He didn't have the will to win. And that's really what it comes down to. Because skill-wise and power-wise, I think he would have won.
Yeah, he was there, but yeah, he didn't have the will to, Yeah, that definitely is a weakness and detraction for what happened with him.
So as long as they're not as powerful as Homelander, it doesn't really matter, right? Because just like every bad, if I was writing a bad, because I could only write bad ones, right? If I was writing a bad Justice League, Superman would just come in at the end and be like, and that would be the end of the story. So that's the ultimate end here. But if you can cause enough chaos, and you can convince enough people, you can solve the chaos, then you can ride the whirlwind, right? And that's how you can get into power. It worked in Italy in the 20s. It worked in Germany in the 30s. It's basically the playbook.
Will it work in the future in a home country? I don't know.
Yes, we should worry about those tactics in the future. And not
in the future.
Not now. In the future.
Not now.
No, they're not. We're not talking about. I told you specifically. I was talking about the Reichstag flyer, and the Reichstag. We're keeping it. We're keeping it literary, but not getting.
All right.
And that's the important thing.
All right.
So everybody can have fun. That's what we want to have fun today.
But it was a fun to me. This episode, it was a fun road trip
Mm-hmm.
episode. Great way to actually split the characters. We got
We didn't talk about Butcher yet.
Butcher.
So we
Yeah,
gotta talk
yeah. I
Butcher
mean,
and Becca.
we always talk about Homelander like he's like the main character in this
He's the
this
most
show.
interesting character because he's the most. I feel like he's the most unique character because he's a trope inversion. He's Red Sun Superman. You know what I mean?
Oh
You know what I'm
yeah,
talking about?
yeah,
So I feel
yeah.
when I talk about like where I think they're going with it, I feel a lot like he's gonna try to do the Red Sun Superman stuff. If you don't know what we're talking
Yep.
about,
Go
it's
read
called
Red Sun
Nerds Talk About the Boys. We're not normal people. We use shorthand and we don't care. That's how it works on this show. All right, so
But good old
Billy
Billy.
Butcher goes and is given the basically location of this walled up vault compound and goes in and basically says, Becca, look, let's get out of here. And she says, oh, well, me and Ryan and you can run far. And he goes, yes, we can run far.
Me and you.
And the boy.
The boy.
Get the boy.
Yeah, he's in a situation where, all he's thinking about is Becca. That's all he's thinking about, which is rightfully so and stuff. But we know how selfish Billy is. To really have him think about, and Becca pointed out, to Billy that him actually being involved with the kids, he didn't really want to have kids and everything, is a detractor for him.
Yep.
And when she fronts him on that, he's sort of like, oh no, it doesn't. It's not really all like that and everything. But come back later in the episode when it's time for them three to go, she actually realizes that no, this is not going to work, Billy, because all you're going to try to do is get rid of my son, and that's not going to work for me.
I won't even notice it.
How?
But you're not going to take it.
How? Well, and the biggest thing for her is, how is it going to be if she does leave him and he grows up to be just like Homelander?
She'd be leaving him to the only person that could really abuse him. I mean, when you really think about it, you could activate his powers, but at a certain point,
yeah,
the problem solves itself, as we've seen. There's a very Gohan sort of situation going on. I watched a lot of Dragon Ball Z when I was in high school.
If Billy was smart, well, if Billy was more in emotional, control and everything, he would realize that he has a very powerful weapon, with the boy that he can actually, probably help manipulate with, Becca too and stuff. But he's selfish. He just wants Becca for
Becca
himself.
now, and Becca knows that now that this child is here, now that Ryan exists, you cannot put Ryan back in the bottle, so to speak. You can't ungenie him. You know what I mean? He's here, and he's gonna be here. And if he's impervious to harm, nothing's gonna stop that from being the case, unless they actually kill him, which is they wouldn't even do morally. Plus, he's extremely valuable, and so she has to stay because they would be able to raise him however they wanted. While she's alive,
right,
he can be controlled by her or by anybody else, because you could say, look, if you don't do what I say, Martha's going to get it. It's a tactic that worked in a certain Zack Snyder movie. Right? I mean, it worked. This is in DC, and this is in the last 5 years. So I feel like that's on the table as something that's a trope. So there's that sort of damsel in distressy sort of situation that could happen. Beyond that, she tells Butcher that that Homelander raped her, which I believe for sure, right? I believe it could be true, but I don't know if it is or not. That's not 100% either way.
Yeah, it's sort of like on the table, like it actually happened like that, and you want to believe that it happened because she's in the situation that she's in. But who knows? I mean, she could have just been drunk, and
I'll put it this way: I take her word for it. But if she was lying to Butcher, I would understand why she's doing it, right? Like that's the way I'll put it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how I want to say it. I think she has reasons to lie to this guy, and that's why I think she's doing it.
I got you.
If that's
Right.
Okay. So what is she doing? Well, she's playing the long game, and she thinks what Vought did is they cheated the world out of Superman by taking Homelander away from the Kents, right? The Kents in this universe, from who should have raised him in a house with a World Series baseball and shorts. He wants to have, if he had gotten all those things, maybe he wouldn't be such a damaged person, that he would be capable of being Superman, and he wouldn't be stuck being so stunted and so, incomplete. Maybe that, because that's what he's missing is the empathy, right? He has everything else. He has the super strength. He has the hair. I mean, the hair is excellent. It's a nice little flip.
Yeah.
He has the air of he's sort of changing a little bit also in the way he's being presented, because he has this air of like a solemnity now that's also interesting.
Yeah.
But I think what Becca's thinking is, well, look, we've got a Homelander. We also need a Superman or whatever, someone who does know that why, like when you kill somebody's family, why they're sad. Someone that can grasp that and wouldn't want that to happen and would have, some sort of real morality instead of the morality that would be instituted by people who followed Mein Kampf like it was some sort of roadmap to how you should live your life instead of the ramblings of an insane syphilitic. You know what I mean?
Well, Homelander was raised in a lab, and Ryan is being raised by actual a mother. He's
is it or is it a much nicer lab?
Interesting. Maybe
Homelander's jealous.
We'll see how that develops.
I'm interested in.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Homelander's always jealous.
There's a lot of. He's jealous of everyone because he wants to know why he's not getting the attention, right? That's why. I mean, if he's here, why aren't you looking at me? I mean, I'm here. There couldn't be anything else you'd want to look at because I'm right here.
Right. So I guess let's talk a little bit about. All right. So we talked about Billy, and unfortunately Billy is in a situation is a no-win situation because you can't compete with a mom and her son. You can't break that connection.
And
so
he sort of is
try to get in the middle of that.
I mean, he's mad that she does what she does, but he's not like mad. He doesn't like refuse to accept it. He just goes, yeah.
I mean, it is what it is and everything, because what else is he going to do? I mean, he can't take the kid away from her. He can't eliminate the kid. But, Becca knows, like I said, that, he'll never really accept, Ryan like that, even though he came before Ryan and stuff. Once a mother has her offspring and everything, you can't break that bond. It's just not happening, Billy. So, yeah.
It's interesting. I wonder what other supers have children. That's an interesting thing that I'm curious about, because it seems like there are the children of supers. It seems like it. So is that something that's always hereditary? One thing the boys has really done this year is they have increased like the scope of the number of possible supers that I thought there were in this world from something like 35 to something like 5,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and also their longevity, how long they've been around in the world and everything, from Lady Liberty to this Soldier Boy or whatever. How long they've been actually, which sounds like he's like a Captain America type character, whatever. How long this whole thing has been going on? How
dark is this flip, right? Because the Marvel universe has the democratic scientist leaving Nazi Germany to come to America because they disapprove of Hitler's policies to create Captain America, and now we have this Nazi scientist coming to America to create a Superman for America that's designed to destroy America and make America Nazi.
Crazy. Woo,
this is a very well written and surprisingly complicated piece.
The layered, well, it's definitely more layered than last season, because once you start getting into the race thing, which I didn't expect them to do at all, it didn't even seem that they was going to go there like last season. Last season just was a big setup for what may, be about to come now. Once you get into like the race stuff, and like the layered fascism and stuff that's just blatantly apparent, and like, a lot of the, a couple of the characters and everything. That's when the complexity sort of comes, and it begins to not to be about superheroes. It begins to be about how what's already been dealing with, how the effects of power is in this world, and how it affects people, not only with people with powers, but people without powers. How it affects people, how it destroys their mind, how it just flips them on, and we see with Annie. She is like the flip side of that, or the other side of that anchor just to keep us all what it is. But notice she's the only one.
Not even the boys, not even Huey and Mother's Milk and Fred. Not even those guys are like on the same
Right.
level
No,
of
pure,
like
pure.
lawful good,
Right.
right? Like they're the only,
Right.
she's the only one.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm excited to see where they're going with this season because it feels like teasing out who Liberty is in a lesser show would have been the whole season's like subplot for
Yeah.
that character. And
Yeah.
when we talk about other stuff that we watch, that I really like it when a series is able to pull off a two climax run in 10 or 8 episodes. I just think that's really impressive. They can build 2 climax stories. I feel like
Yeah.
The Boys has essentially done that because I feel like the climax of the first plot was in last episode. So the first 3 they released was one like cogent story. It felt like one
Right.
movie one.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the rest of this
Yes.
feels like setup for movie 2. And movie 2 will be
Right.
this struggle between, the forces of good and evil for the fate of the world, like all good movies probably should be, right? I like where they're going. I like the complexity of adding a little bit of mystery to Stormfront. I like the ambiguity about how powerful is she in comparison to Homelander, like 50%, 100%. Like we never know.
Yeah. We see her sort of get full scared of when her and Homelander had that talk, and he gets mad and his eyes get red and everything, and she's like, okay, but she's not really scared. She knows that this guy can be manipulated. Let's just talk a little bit quick about the Deep.
Yes.
And what he's going through with his Scientology, craziness and everything.
So he's auditioning girls, and his minder won't let him pick the one that is obviously probably the best fit for his libido, if nothing else, and forces him to pick the one with with that weird story about like the wedding.
The
Deep is excellent comic relief, and I think that they're really playing this well. This sort of pathetic, like losery, reinvention of myself as legit when I'm not legit.
Right.
Pretend that I'm okay with who I am with not being okay, and just kind of fake it till you make it. And I think that the indictment of the indictment here with Fresca Lady just being like, no, that's not who you want, and like telling him what to do is a pretty firm statement. Again, on the part of the creators who are saying that, like as I said, they have created a very atheistic superhero story here. There is no higher power. They say it. Annie, who again is the protagonist this year, says it explicitly.
Right.
There is nobody
Right.
above us. So all of this,
Right.
you have to sort of keep that frame of view in mind when you watch these things, is that they are always sort of making that point.
Right. And it's chaos going on everywhere. So you're only gonna have so many people. You have this percentage of goodness. You got this big, larger percentage of people who are like on like this and that. On the wavelength of could they be good, could they be evil? They have they're amoral to a degree, and then you have your purely evil folks on this side. So it's this large pull versus this other pull, and all these people in the middle are being jumbled all around. So it's a really interesting, complex thing for a superhero show. I've never seen anything like this.
That farts, right? For
a butt that farts.
For a car crash that you can't look away from. Even this had,
I don't want to look away.
But it's making some very timely points in ways that are that are not the easiest way to do them, and that of course isn't that
not at all. And it's amazing too, because in the moment that we're in right now, these episodes were made maybe like a year ago. Before a lot of crazy stuff has been happening. So props to the writers for just being very in tune and aware of how the universe is, and putting a lot of elements into the show. It's a really fun show to watch. And I'm excited to see how, this next episode is going to be. Props to Amazon too for always premiering it before, at least like around 10 o'clock on Thursday night, so I can get my fix, for these Friday podcasts.
Yeah. Get it in early. It's nice to get it kind of out of the way. I'm stoked. So before we go, I want to ask, apart from The Boys, because we talk about, we get myopic a little bit here. So we have other shows that we do. We're Nerd Cyclopedia. We're a duo, as you can see our name below. I want to pitch a little bit here. I want to talk about Bounty Hunter BS, which is our podcast about The Mandalorian, which
Woo!
we're excited to announce officially here will be coming back for season 2. Hopefully the guys will come back and we'll have the full complement on board. I'm thinking that we will. We're real excited to talk about Mandalorian season 2. All the stuff that's been coming out about it, looks really excellent. It sounds like they sort of perfected the methods they were using in season 1 to create real more immersive areas. And if you haven't checked that out, check that out. Star Wars is always sort of the cutting edge of production stuff. And I was watching episode 3. I was telling Sam this like on Wednesday. I was watching episode 3 this week, and there's this some really, really bad Hayden Christensen acting. But you can tell that they spent a lot of money on how everything looked, so it looked really awesome. Episode 3 is good as a silent movie. Is my new thing. But we're like in German with subtitles with different script. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, elements of Star Wars. Yeah, can't wait for Mandalorian to come back out October. When it's coming out. So definitely catch us. And also catch up on some of the other podcasts we did. We did a really great Watchmen.
Oh yeah. Talk about strong female leads, right? We've been
exactly.
Really enjoying that sort of stuff. We did our whole series on Watchmen, and if you weren't a fan then, or you haven't checked it out, seriously go check it out. We did like a whole hour on every single chapter of the graphic novel, and then we did a bunch of shows on the actual series. Really proud of that work for sure. That is an excellent series. So I highly recommend checking that out. Definitely watch the videos, listen to the shows.
Yep, and go back and if you're watching Mandalorian over again, we just mentioned that we're going to do season 2. We did a whole season 1 of Mandalorian, so make sure that you check out our Bounty Hunter BS podcast. We also did Westworld as well. So go to nerdcyclopedia.com. That's where all our info is. That's where all our podcasts and, stuff that we do on nerd culture. Make sure that you are following us all over social media at Nerdcyclopedia. And if you like what you're hearing right now, maybe leave us some feedback. We appreciate the feedback. Nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com.
We absolutely appreciate the reviews we've gotten so far. Thanks so much for the nice comments. We appreciate you guys stopping by. If you leave a comment, I'll tell you this. We're a homebrew store. We're a mom and pop operation. I'm mom. He's pop. But we're a mom and pop operation. If you think we said something you disagree with, you put something in the comments below this. I mean, there's like 100% chance I'm going to see it. So if you want to say something mean to me, this is your chance. And if you know me and you want to say something mean to me, I'm not going to know who it is. You just make up a name.
Hashtag Hitch.
Hate Hitch. That's how it's going to be, right? All right. Well, as we all know, that we're gonna wrap it up here. I think an hour on this one's good. Good show. Okay. I think we had a pretty good time talking about it.
Solid episode.
Gotten everything we wanted.
Can't wait till next
week.
We're
all feeling pretty happy about all that. And signing off here. I'm SC Hitch, and this is my buddy.
I'm DP Brown.
And we hope to see you next week for Nerds Talk About the Boys, where we do what you think we're fucking doing. See you later.